Welcome to Mr. 2 Reviews. Today I'll be talking about what makes a good tourniquet. I think it's safe to say that despite some controversies tourniquets had in the past, it is now widely accepted as a life-saving tool if you know what to do with it. I should probably preface this by saying I am not a medical professional in any way and that you should do your own research on how to use tourniquets and not just listen to some random dude on YouTube. That being said, you could lose a limb if you don't know what you're doing. In general, you don't want to have a tourniquet on for more than 2 hours. The source for most of my information comes from papers published by the Committee on Tactical Combat Casualty Care, or TCCC for short, which I'll link in the description. This committee is a government organization tasked with analyzing medical data obtained from the battlefield to form recommendations that will ultimately decrease injuries and casualties by U.S. Armed Forces. So what I have here are 3 tourniquets: a Gen 6 Combat Application Tourniquet, also known as a CAT tourniquet by North American Rescue, the Special Operations Forces Tourniquet or SOF-T Wide version by TACMED Solutions, and the Swat-T Tourniquet by TEMS Solutions. Of these 3, the Committee on TCCC only recommends these 2 to be used in the field. They also recommend one other one called the Emergency and Military Tourniquet or EMT by Delphi Medical, but not to be used in the field. It sort of looks like a blood pressure cuff, and they don't specify why it shouldn't be used in the field except that it is far more expensive than the other 2 at around $475, compared to about $33 for these 2. I would speculate that in addition to the higher price tag, the components are more vulnerable to damage, rendering it useless, whereas these 2 can probably sustain more damage and still function. I would like to add that the EMT tourniquet probably feels the most comfortable when it's applied. If any of you have ever had your blood pressure taken, I imagine all of you, then you should have an idea of how it would feel. If any of you have practiced with any other tourniquet, which I strongly recommend you do, then you probably know how uncomfortable it can be, particularly when it starts pinching your skin. Due to the cost alone for the EMT tourniquet, I'm not going to include it in this review. So which tourniquet is best? Like many things in life, it depends. It depends on what you want. If weight to performance is most important, I would say go with the CAT. It's the lightest of the 3 and it has the recommendation of the Committee on TCCC, and there's a lot of data that proves it works. If durability and reliability is most important to you, I would go for the SOF-T Wide, which is my personal preference. It's more durable and reliable because it uses metal parts in critical areas, whereas the CAT uses all plastic. The only plastic part in the SOF-T is this piece right here that holds the windlass. I have heard of the plastic windlass and buckles breaking on CAT tourniquets by other reviewers, but I can't be sure if they were using it properly or a fake one. Which brings me to my next point. Both of these tourniquets have a lot of fake or imitations out there, so you have to be careful. If you want to be sure, you should get it directly from the maker. Another YouTuber by the name of Skinematic demonstrates how they don't work as well as the real ones by forcing you to twist the windlass many more times than the authentic versions to stop arterial flow. And in another video, he shows how to identify if they're fake. I got mine from Amazon from a surplus military IFAK kit, and I'm certain this is real. The materials, the finish, and markings are all where they should be. Another drawback with older CAT tourniquets that they have since addressed in the new Gen 7 models was that you had to double the buckle if you applied it to a thigh. The Committee on TCCC mentions that under certain conditions such as care under fire, a single slit will suffice provided it's a Gen 6 CAT, which are longer than previous generations at 37.5 inches long compared to just 31 inches for the older ones. The longer length meant that there's more Velcro to adhere to the band, decreasing the likelihood of it loosening. But the new Gen 7 Cats did away with the double buckle and is now single slit for any application, making it faster and simpler to apply. The SOF-T, if I'm not mistaken, is currently on its 4th generation model. I don't know what changes were made though between generations. This is currently used by Special Forces, whereas the CAT is issued to the US Army. I actually bought this one in Korea from a Korean website, and it wasn't advertised as a SOF-T tourniquet anywhere, even though it looks exactly like one, so I suspect it's a fake, even though it cost about the same as a real one. It could just be an older generation one, but new ones should have a tag here with all the appropriate markings and trademarks. I have practiced with it and it functions well, and since it doesn't use any plastic parts with the exception of the windlass lock, I think it will be just as reliable. The only criticism I have against the SOF-T is that it might be hard to get the windlass in the plastic lock once it has been tightened. The Swat-T tourniquet is the cheapest of the bunch at around $12. It's not the easiest one to use for self-application, but with practice it is doable. It's basically 4 inches by 4 feet of a latex-free band, and the instructions for use is right in its name: stretch, rep, and tuck. The pros of this tourniquet is that it costs the least, It packs smaller than the others at 4¼ inches tall by 2 inches wide and only 5/8 of an inch thick. It works on small children or skinny people equally well, and it probably feels the most comfortable when applied because it's so much wider than the others. In general, the wider the band, the less pressure is required to stop arterial flow. Its major con is that it's not the easiest to apply one-handed. It also has a finite shelf life of up to 10 years if kept in optimal conditions. It's also surprisingly the heaviest of the three. Its target market is for law enforcement and SWAT officers, so there could be a lot of data that proves it actually works. I just haven't come across any yet. If someone can link to that info, I'd appreciate it. The best part about tourniquets is that they have more than one use. They can be used in other medical ways, such as to hold and apply pressure to a bandage, as a sling, or to secure a splint. There is another cheaper option, and that is the Israeli bandage, which goes for about $8 to $9 depending on if you go with the 4-inch or 6-inch version. This is the 4-inch version, by the way, and while it wasn't designed to be a dedicated tourniquet, it can function as one. It's almost as light as the Cat tourniquet, but it's larger in size. It's not as easy to apply with one hand, but again, it's doable. What you do is wrap it like you would a pressure bandage, but instead of clipping the end using the plastic clip, you place 1 or 2 wraps above the plastic clip and use it like a windlass. Tighten until the bleeding stops, then clip it to itself to prevent it from unraveling. If I could choose only one, I would go for the SOF-T Wide, but everyone's needs are different. Honestly, I don't think you can go wrong with any one of these, but the Cat and the SOF-T are definitely easiest to use. If you have a family, you may actually want to have more than one in case, God forbid, 3 of you have arterial bleeding, like say from an auto accident. You don't want to have to choose who gets the tourniquet and who rolls the dice with an improvised one if you even have the materials on hand to do so. And in that case, where seconds count, you're going to want a tourniquet that applies fast and easy, and that's where the Cat and the SOF-T tourniquets outperform the others. So that concludes my review of what I think are the best tourniquets. Give it a like or subscribe if you found this info helpful. Next time on Mr. 2 Reviews, I'm going to switch topics and talk about coffee products, starting with Aerobi's AeroPress and the Porlex KP30 ceramic hand grinder. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.